afraid to ask, too lazy to Google. Welcome to No Idea Yet. I'm today's host, and welcome Freddie.
Oh, I didn't realize we're still doing that. Hi.
And Alistair.
God, man, episode 12. Can people get it by now? Hello there.
Because at the ending we don't say anything, so I mix it all up. Whatever.
So join us on the journey to find out how little we know. First, we'll discuss the topic we may or may not think we know. Then we'll go away for a week to research. We'll then discuss our findings and hopefully learn something along the way. They don't know the topic till right now, which is coming of age.
Ooh.
So when do you become an adult? What is an adult?
It.
That is so different from your other styles, Johnny. Such as
Johnny's finally gone for one that's specific enough rather than ethics.
The first thing I'm going to ask you is, what is the definition of an adult?
sports.
What's the dictionary definition
That is true.
of an adult?
That's a good question because obviously it does. Like,
Oh man.
I doubt it would be an age thing because it
Yeah.
varies in countries, right? Obviously, 18 and 21 is normally considered
So would
standard, but yeah.
I feel like it would probably be like an animal thing of like past the juvenile stage, past infant juvenile.
Oh,
to
Yeah, there's probably like a
mature.
biological answer, and then there's probably like
Yeah.
a societal answer and things. Yeah.
So I
There
think
is.
the-
Yep. And I'm thinking the biology one, and I'm not happy about it because I don't want to say it.
Yeah, who's gonna say that one first? Yeah, yeah. No,
It's got to be when you can have kids, right?
Yeah,
like
sexual
if you're
match.
mature enough to have a
yeah,
kid,
sexual maturity, right? Yeah.
which
But
sadly in
but
humans
maturity
is
and
like
having
12.
a kid.
But
Yeah.
it makes you think though of like, but you'd say like when you're 16 for most boys or something like that. Things I wrote is when do you become an adult? So for like I know the limited amount of RE I remember from GCC. In Judaism, it's when you're 14, so you become a man. You go through bar mitzvah or bat mitzvah for a girl, and so that's when you become a man. In the UK, we tend to think of when you become an adult when you're 18, and I'm assuming that because you can vote, you can drink, you can drive, and gamble. In the US, I think it's
I mean, you drive at
21,
17.
but it's a
Yeah,
bit-
I was just thinking that. I was like,
Yeah, no.
I saw Freddie pop up. I was like, yeah, he's gonna say.
Yeah, I'd say with lottery
Yeah.
you can do when you're 16, and like in the US, 21 they have for drinking, but like, I think so. The biggest things I've put are criminal responsibility, driving, gambling, drinking, and voting. So I think
It's basically all responsibility. I think yeah, that's
yeah,
that's what it
those
is.
are
Isn't
the
it?
big things.
When you tried as an adult, isn't there a thing like if you commit a crime at like 17, I think you might still be tried as an adult.
I think yeah,
It's
it
a juvenile,
depends on
yeah,
the
well.
severity. I think.
Yeah.
But
There's a case. I'll look that up for next week. There was an interesting case regarding exactly that.
So, Freddie, when do you think you become an adult?
Oh man, well we got the biology one out of the way. I wanted to get that done. So I guess it's got to be like depending on your culture and your society, like it's different.
When did you think? Do you think you're an adult now at the ripe old age of
Ah,
26?
okay. That is me. Like that is the thing, isn't it? Like, you know, everyone says that you look back at when you were X and they were an idiot. Now you're mature. Like, when you're like 35, you look back like 26-year-old me was a complete idiot. He had no idea what he was doing. And then like 50-year-old you looks back and like 36-year-old me was such an idiot. So I think
I'm seeing a pattern now. Now I've got
feel-
50.
yeah.
Obviously, yeah.
When you get to 90,
You
you're just
never-
like, yeah, I'm just old now. I don't care.
I think you never, like we get maybe the linguistics, like you never fully mature because you've always got more maturation to get to. You can always learn more, and some people never do mature. But like if you stick with the kind of like when do you stop being a child and become a fully independent person? And I guess it's when you gain independence, right? When you keep yourself alive, like solely you by yourself, then I think that's possibly for me a sign. Like I remember thinking at university, or well after I'd done a bit of travelling, like oh my god, all the food, like the reason I'm alive is because I put enough food in my body to not die, and that was all me.
I stopped being spoon-fed at the age of
So, would you say
quite literally.
somebody who needs a carer full time isn't technically an adult?
Ooh, he's throwing out the
Someone
devil's
who's
advocate.
in
there.
care full time.
Who needs a full time carer isn't an adult? Just to throw that in the mix.
That is a good one. I mean, I'm thinking.
That's kind of the circle of life kind of thing, isn't it? As well, like if you talk about towards the end of someone's life, that's kind of like you start your life in
Yeah.
nappies, you end your life in nappies potentially. It's, yeah.
Yeah. So I
Yeah.
guess,
So we think of it as like a linear thing, but maybe it is.
yeah, but so before we go into it, so Alistair, at the age of 24,
Five as of last week.
That's it. Oh, you could just.
It was his
that's why.
birthday.
Yeah, I remember. So
So yeah, have you got anything in the post recently? Oh, I guess not.
At the age of 25, do you feel like you're an adult?
I do now. Yeah, I think the sort of first thing that happened to me that was like this is weird was when I was working as a waiter. I think I was probably 17, maybe 18, and a woman, a guest, as a or client, whatever you want to call, said to her like child who's probably 5 or 6, tell the man what you want.
Oh,
And I remember being, I was looking around the room like, what man? What are you talking about? Literally taking a look to the left and right, and oh wait, I'm the man. This is bizarre. So yeah, I was definitely, I was a
You're the
teenager
man,
then.
Alistair.
Definitely.
You're the man.
I was 19 at the oldest, but yeah, I think I was 17, 18, and then it was very weird. But yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, I think adulthood. I know. Yeah, paying more taxes now. That feels very grown up. I don't know, stuff like that.
I feel like a big boy because I like when I could drive abroad properly. Does that make sense?
Mm.
yeah.
Like I mean, actually driving was such a big thing because in my head, like I didn't drive at 17. I passed a test at 18 and then didn't drive for 5 years. So I was always around other people who drove, but in my head it was still kind of a weird adult thing that I didn't do. And then suddenly I'm thrown into like having to drive all the time, completely different cars, like different places, and I'm like, I feel like such an adult, but I shouldn't be here. But, like, oh my god.
Yeah. I think a big thing as well for like, I think where it's probably a really important thing coming of age of when you're an adult is for things like when are you allowed to vote or when are you allowed to be held accountable for your actions. You know, for like committing a crime. I think there's something in the news, and there'll be something to look up about maybe changing the ages of responsibility for crimes against kids or something. And you've got to think of like, you know, somebody here in America of like somebody who came out of like their 40-year jail sentence from the age of 18. And it's like, really, by the age they're 18, does that constitute an entire life sentence? Like, do you think you're still held fully accountable for what you did as an 18-year-old? And I think like you'd think, well, surely, you know, there's a lot of time to change then, isn't there?
Mm.
You know, and even now you see like you say of, you know, they did a little, I don't know if it's a study or just a little questionnaire of like, you know, 10 years ago, do you think you're more yourself now than you were 10 years ago? And they ask them at 20, yes, 30, yes, 40, yes, and you always feel you're your true self now compared to 10 years ago because you didn't know then of all the things you know now. So like
That's the trippy thing about time travel, right? If you know, they're like, what would you tell your past self? Like, if you went back in time and spoke to your 10-year-old you, like, you'd be like, oh my god, it's me, I'm so young and small, and you'd be like, don't do this, and remember this, and make sure that when you go to this party, you like don't cry about it. And they're just seeing some old man rambling.
What party did you? Yeah.
or
Yeah,
you'd be
no,
like,
that's bizarre.
we
It was
haven't
a very
died yet,
stressful
so
past
go
sex.
absolutely crazy. Do loads of extreme sports. Clearly, we don't die if time travel is impossible.
Yeah. No, I did. I wrote I get like a journal when I was like 18, the summer of 2013. It was, I believe, 2014. I should be able to work that out. 2014, the summer of. I kept a journal, and I remember I read it back when I was like a year or two ago. I found it and reread it, and it like when I was sort of 23, 24, and it properly read like someone else wrote it. Like the guy who wrote that was not the guy who was reading it as well. You know, there's 5 year, probably call it a 5 year, the gap between, and it was very, very trippy to read and be like, this is this. I don't know who wrote this, but it wasn't me. But it was. And,
Also,
yeah.
You cringe a little as well. That's all.
Oh, super cringy.
Oh,
Oh yeah.
yeah,
Oh god,
yeah.
yeah, for sure.
the things that
I'm
you
not.
thought were
I'm not
important.
publishing that anytime soon.
No memoirs.
It's not one for them. But yeah.
The thing
I did
said about-
write an autobiography at 10, which is great, which is a really
Really?
great read. Yeah,
You should publish it.
really, it's a real lengthy one, of course. Yeah, project for year 6. Sorry, go on for it.
No, that's sick. I mean, I'm trying to think of the things that like 10-year-old you needs to write down are things that like 26-year-old you put.
I just have my editor in my ear all the time. I just it was a whole thing.
Deadlines, you know.
Do you really need to like stress how many biscuits you weren't allowed?
All the angst I went through. That's the funny thing. I just this thought of the movie Year 6. At what age do you? I don't know if you guys have stopped this or not. At what age do you stop thinking of other people as whether or not they were the year above you or the year below you in school? Is that still a thing? Like I'm 25 now. I definitely still if I speak to someone, I'll be like, oh yeah. I'll be trying to work out in my head what year they were in relation to me in school. Like, why do we do that still? Does it matter? But yeah,
That's the safest thing for dating as well. As soon as you like, oh, you know, what's the age difference between dating? Just assume as soon as you leave a place of where you're judged by your year group, then you're okay to date. Do you like an 18 to like 22 or whatever or something like that? But if you're still having to figure out what year you're not like what you're saying, I know what you mean, but like if you're still in school, just stick to year group.
And I'm not saying for when you're still at school. I mean, at what age do you stop thinking about that? Because but yeah, maybe.
Yeah,
Oh yeah.
definitely people I've met from the area of like, oh, do you like you maybe went to the same school? Like, oh, what year were you in? And you're trying to figure out like how old are you? And like, I know you said a number of your age, but that doesn't matter to me. Who do you know?
But yeah, I'd be very curious to get your take on this as well. So in terms of when did you feel like an adult the first time? I mean, given that you've done more in the world of grown up stuff.
I know.
So
I got married at 22, had a house, moved in with my wife at 22, had a baby at 25, and owned a home at 25 as well. So I've ticked off a lot of the list. I think.
Wow, look at that smile. That's a smile.
That's a proud man. Not a proud boy. That's a proud man.
Moustache.
Mustache and all, yeah.
Hopefully coming off tonight. I've decided I'm going to shave and have a beard. So
You're going to shave and stick it on your chin.
I'm not going to. This is going to slight diversion. I'll get back to the adult bit of asking Abby's granddad. We were chatting about something. He said, like, in my head, I'm still like an 18-year-old. I think that's why you hear lecturers saying, like, oh, I don't even know how to adult. And, like, you're teaching me a university course. And if you're saying you don't know how to adult, that's, I guess it's I think it's probably, for the lecturer that said that, it's because in their head they're thinking, when you think of an adult, you think someone who's got it together, whatever. And you've got that thought in your head of what an adult is and whether you are or not an adult. And yeah, I don't know. I think one defining moment, I went to the barber's where I was in Chester, so I must have been 22, 23, and I was like, oh, I've got a bit of a recede. It's like, and the guy who's probably only 18, I say only, I was not much older than them at all, and he was like, yeah, don't worry though, mate, like, I've got a mate and he's like 21 and he's like going bald. I'm like, well, I'm flattered that you think I'm older than 20, but also no, I am the age group you're making fun of, having a receding hairline.
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah,
he tried his best.
Yeah, you definitely feel more of an adult when you have a receding hairline. Being able to grow facial hair more consistently.
So, that's a big one for me. I don't know if Freddie wants to try on this as well. I think Freddie and I have fairly similar abilities or lack of ability in facial hair growth. When I was a kid, I just assumed that was something you get when you're an adult. You get to grow facial hair properly when you're an adult. I'm so
disappointed about it.
And I'm still 25, still waiting. But yeah, no, it's funny. Yeah. But to be fair, Freddie's dad is one of the only people in the family who can grow a really solid beard. Yeah, so because but yeah, actually my brother's not too bad for it. He's got quite decent coverage and everything. But yeah, it is very funny.
Yeah, stepbrothers, they could grow it, and like when they were 15, they had a full beard, like feet and hair all over the body. Whereas me, I'm pretty hairless body wise, and
I feel like if they're stepbrothers, that's pretty normal, right?
Oh yeah, of course. But do you like the thing of, like,
I was gonna say, you're a biologist now.
But I'd say 25.
You never know.
Or like even more recently, of when fully facial hair is kind of like consistently in a certain pattern, if you know what I mean. Whereas for them, 16, and they were like fully there.
Yeah, well, my girlfriend Eden, he used to say that. He said he used to be buying alcohol for people older than him, or people older than him would ask him to buy alcohol when he was like 16, 17. Just because of the beard.
Do you look at like a 16-year-old with facial hair and you're like, what? Like, I mean, I can see you're a child. You just have a beard.
I definitely, like, when you think you look old, I was looking at old photos, and like when you're 16, 17, you're like, oh yeah, I feel mature, I feel more adult, I feel whatever. You look back and you're like, oh man, that is such a baby face. You don't even know it. Like, from 17 to a baby, like to a child, yeah, you've matured, but still so noticeable of how smooth.
Yeah, I looked at me when I was 2 and I was like, oh, what a baby. Jeez. Grow up, man.
I think
I'm with you on that one, yeah, for sure.
I take the adult thing like wisdom, assume that strive for wisdom, but know that you can't be wise, because then you're not.
Yeah, that's Stay humble, but
you must have interacted with young kids. I mean, I obviously have in schools and stuff, but and like summer camps. But you have a kid that's 12, and that they're mature in the sense that you can be like, right, I need to do this. I need it to be done in this kind of way, and can you look after so and so while you do it or something? And they're going to do it, and that they can handle it. And if there's a problem, they're going to like notify you or get something done in the right way. And they're 12, and they might be looking after like a 15-year-old because the 15-year-old's an idiot. And, like, there is a degree of maturation that for some reason some people have younger than others by like years.
Yeah.
No, for sure.
And then also,
Don't know, you guys haven't got younger siblings, have you? So it's kind of like a bit funny. But whenever I saw my younger brother, younger sister doing things at like certain ages, like 16, 18, and I'd be like, "What? You're a baby. Your friends are idiots." Or, "Oh wait, no wait, you're allowed to do that. That's allowed."
That's what I did. One thing I'll go into as well is coming of age is parent relationships and activities. So when does things change from like nakedness, kissing, and bathing? At some point, oh no, you're too old now. That it's weird if I see you naked. I don't think it's probably ever weird for parents to see the kids naked because it's just like, whatever. But for like kissing or bathing is a big thing. I remember on ITV morning, and it was like, oh man, there's a woman who bathed with her like 12-year-old kids still, like in the bath as they're going to high school, and it's like it's completely normal. They like it. It's nice bath time. It's like you're probably pushing your own thoughts onto that. And at the very least, even if they're okay with it, if their mates at school find out, they will be painfully bullied for it. Unfortunately, how much you think
so
it's
bad.
okay for you and your family, which it could be isolated, like whatever. It's in. As soon as they go to school, as soon as any kid finds out, you've made their life worse because it's this thing societally we don't do. But yeah, so for you guys, for when do you think that relationship changes, especially with fathers bathing the daughters and stuff like that? Because I know a friend, she said they stopped. Her husband stops having showers with their daughter now, and she's about 8 or something. It's something they don't do anymore. Still may help her into the bath and whatever, but doesn't shower with her anymore. And there's an age, isn't there? There's that unspoken rule, I guess, where it becomes weird.
I felt like it was kind of when memories start forming more. I don't know, like
I don't really have any memories of
your
that.
own
So
life.
yeah.
But I know that I definitely bathed with my brother and sister. Like we would be totally naked, and I vaguely remember it, right? And that's totally fine. I feel like I'm not.
I also think we shower a lot more than we used to, because I definitely remember baths being a lot, even for like parents having baths, whereas now everyone just has showers. So like, if you know what I mean.
Baths are such effort. I'm sure they're great, but what?
I just think we were talking about. I thought the Little Britain sketch with the bitty guy, where he's like a fully grown man, like breastfeeding. But yeah, no, obviously there's very much like I think you look at it, but yeah, that's weird or not. Like you'd know. Hopefully you wouldn't be looking at it, but you know what I mean.
Although you could say like the nudity thing, like we should definitely be more comfortable with nudity. Like
feel this to Fred the nudist.
What? No, but it shouldn't
Well,
be creepy. To be around
that, but
people who are naked.
Yeah.
But not necessarily that you're doing stuff with each other. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, so stories of like fathers being with their daughters when they're breastfeeding and being uncomfortable, and it's like that's such like a, it's breastfeeding, isn't it? It's not even like somebody's naked, if you know what I mean. It's just kind of like that's just a natural thing, and for them to feel uncomfortable, it's like you got to make sure you have to build a relationship where you can feel comfortable doing something which is necessary. Or say like you had to undress somebody in an emergency, like, oh, we need to take the trousers off because they're on fire, but you're going to make them naked. You mean do you like
take the trousers off?
That's just going to really sorry.
It's basic CPR, mate. Take his trousers off first. That's a little bit contrived, Johnny, but yeah. But I mean, like,
you know what I mean, though.
Yeah. I guess the other end of the spectrum you go with that would be like say you were looking after your grandma or something and she fell over in the shower, and then you'd go help her, right? That wouldn't be a question. But obviously then I don't know, that would be kind of
a much better example than someone's trousers are on fire. You don't want to be rude when taking them off.
Someone's been lying. Someone's been egregiously lying. Oh dear, that's funny.
I think same with like for parents not care. I assume that as you get, well, at least for me, maybe I was being too whatever thing, because some parents find it weird seeing that like a daughter breastfeed, for instance. But,
so in that breastfeeding example, you were saying like so that the daughter's an adult breastfeeding, and then the grandfather is there basically. Yeah, so, I don't think that would be an issue really, but
that makes a lot more sense.
Though. Yeah, sorry, it's not just. Yeah, I think like for nakedness, because you're just used to it. You just realise that, like, same with like, I don't feel too uncomfortable getting changed in front of somebody. Not saying like fully naked, but like topless or like changing into boxes. Because I'm like, most likely either you're a parent, like especially anyone's older who's either got kids or is married. Like you've seen everything before. I'm sure it'll be fine. Obviously not on. They'll know that I'm getting dressed. I'm not going to randomly get dressed in public and just assume that everyone's got a partner or a kid. But it's that assumption that, to be honest, there's some things it's not an issue, is it really?
Well, I feel like we need to feel this to if you want to talk about Fred, obviously we can cut it if you don't. It's just speak about with Johnny. But the whole like nudist, your experiences of nudist beaches, nudist colonies, and everything that you sort of have dabbled with. Like I said, it's something you don't want to discuss. Obviously, I don't want to put that on you, but I think it's interesting.
No.
Let us know.
Yeah, you're more than welcome to keep this in. And I went to some nudist camps, and it was a bit strange at first. Like I'd never done it before. I was 25 at the time, and I have to say that like there are kids there, and that's the weirdest bit. Like knowing that there's children. Often the children were clothed, but their parents weren't. And I don't know, you do get used to it very quick, but at the beginning that was really weird. And then my friend and I noticed pretty quick that lots of the very old men had these metal or bejazzled rings around their genitalia. And just like, why are they doing it? So we Googled it, and it's just like, apparently there's stuff to do with erections and things, but generally it's just an aesthetic thing. And then there were shops there that had these. So we went in, and also everyone in the shop's naked. So you just wander around these shops naked. And I was just like, I went over to the guy, and also this is in France, and my French is awful. And I was just like, can I try this? And he was like, yeah, sure. And I was just like, how? And there's a video of me stood there with a shop assistant as he explains to me how to tuck in my genitalia into this like surprisingly tight ring. It's just so uncomfortable. But yeah, like I think you get used to it quick enough if you're open to it. So like I think it's worth talking about. Like I don't know, I think parents and kids and stuff, like I mean being naked around each other is an important part of life, and I think it's something that we should be. I think it shouldn't matter so much about maturity. It should be throughout your life, right? But there is like you're saying, a kind of an taboo where it's like, oh, they're kind of an adult now, or they're sexually not necessarily sexually active, but they're sexually morphing. What was it called? Yeah, God,
Maturing.
puberty. That's the word.
Yeah.
They're going through puberty.
When you level up enough, and then you evolve, and then you yeah.
Well, look, child Alistair is evolving into teenage Alistair.
He's still got a beard.
So I think so to say to round up a bit is we think there's like a biological adulthood, and that's either sexual maturation just sounds a bit weird to me, I don't know why, sexual maturity, or maybe something along the lines of where you stop being a juvenile, and where we may class that. We've also said about being fully responsible for yourself, of where you are, if something doesn't happen, it's your fault to yourself. Also touched on a little bit about disability, like if we were to go on that thing about responsibility for yourself, like where does that leave with disabled people, because of course they become adults. But then we talked a little bit about your true self compared to your past self, like so saying like as you're aging you think you are more yourself than previously. And then we went into like nudity and obviously parenting, and like a thing of is it as you mature into an adult that the whole nakedness in front of others, and maybe through puberty, I was saying that this is a part of where you're becoming an adult, because things like that matter. One thing as well, cool thing, before puberty, kids have the same strength level, dependent on size. So it's a case of boys aren't stronger than girls. It's a case of there's no difference whatsoever. So that's quite cool. So do you think, oh yeah, the boys are the strong ones, and like if you had a strength test with primary school kids, they'll all be relative to just them. There's no like clear winner.
That's so cool.
Because testosterone, and I think it's, but what we teach kids. It's about like gender and stuff like that, and like what we inadvertently end up teaching of like boys are strong, girls are weak, and as an adult that may be the case because of hormones, but until that point, no, it's all the same. That's quite cool.
Oh, that's mad.
So I realised I didn't have any questions for you to go away with. But so the thing of just look up. So when do we become an adult, and also maybe look at different like societies of where people become adults. So be it like due to religion, culture, tribes, anything like that, and also look up a bit about crime because I think that's it. And crime and voting, I think, are two big things. Possibly drinking, and if you wanted to look into it, parents. But yeah, why we chose those ages.
Lovely. Awesome.
Right, so that's it. So we'll
Sounds
see you
good.
in a week, and you'll see us in a couple of seconds. So if you'd like to welcome us back to the show, it's been a week for us and all 5 seconds for you. And we're talking about coming of age. When do you become an adult? And we talked about some things about like, do you classify it just as like your sexual maturity, or is it more like a mental thing? And also then kind of different cultures seems to be the case of, in Judaism it's 13 for boys and 12 for girls, and in the US it's 21 to drink, 18 to be enlisted or vote, and the UK is the same, like 16 to gamble, 18 to vote, and when you can be charged for crimes. So Alistair and Freddie have gone away to do some revision for this week. So guys, what have you got for me? What have you got? Anything stand out?
Crimes are expensive, man. Crimes are expensive. Definitely, the legal stuff was a bit of a rabbit hole I went down, which was basically fairly sensible in most of the world, and then the US is just mental for it. Like they're like putting 12-year-old kids in jail, and it's this, I don't know. There's a pretty harrowing TED talk on it, which you can listen to if you want. It's probably not going to be linked below because it's a bit, I don't know. No, it's actually quite worth a watch, but it's it's pretty harrowing stuff. Yeah, like literally sending 12-year-old kids for a life imprisonment and then being held in like a sort of effectively often an adult prison until their sort of trial, and then for their 18th birthday, happy 18th birthday, you get to join an adult prison, for the rest of your life. It's just pretty, I feel like the rehabilitation and everything should be a completely different situation, right, for a kid, you'd think, like you hope. But yeah, no, so yeah, that was a bit of a rabbit hole to say the least.
Because I read a bit which is saying of like for maturity for like your brain, I think different studies suggested that as you get into your 30s that you get full maturation of your actual brain. So like 25 to 30, that's the kind of age of when you're starting to. And before then, apparently there's an increased risk of mental health problems dependent on like things that happen to you along those lines.
Oh God, for sure.
Yeah, I saw a lot about that, like about the potential risks, or just the problems that you have in adolescence. Is there such an important time where you have to make big decisions, but you're more susceptible to using drugs, you're more susceptible to abuse.
No, actually, I did research a bit on this brain development stuff though, and I think it's super interesting. In terms of you think, you sort of mature, probably done by the time you stop growing by the time you're sort of 15, 16, 18 maybe, depending on who you are, I guess. But yeah, super. I think it's very individual. It's very much, we don't know much about it, and yeah, like definitely. I think obviously in terms of new neuron development and everything, it carries on throughout your whole life, right? So it's always going to be changing. But I think in terms of the actual growth and everything, that's potentially into your 30s. From the brief research I did this, I must have.
So is it a case that you're saying like we don't actually know a huge amount about the brain developing, just that it's not like suddenly 15, 18 you stop developing your brain and you're an adult. It's
definitely continuous. It's again, I think it always fascinates. This would definitely be a huge rabbit hole, but it always fascinates me about how little we know about the brain, and it's kind of like the source code for the simulation. So if we're living in the simulation, like, we can't know too much about the brain, because then they'll figure out what's going on behind the curtain. That's always, I don't know, amused me as a little thought there. But I think it's pretty fascinating.
Yeah, it's like there's Mars is better mapped than the bottom of the ocean kind of thing, where it's like something which is so close, which you think surely we've got a handle on, and it's like not in the slightest.
No, hey, we'll let Elon Musk.
Not even that, but imagine
put in the link.
I'm so excited. I want to join in, but I just feel like it's going to cut off.
So
like it's the fact it's in your head, it's like you can talk about it because you own it. Yeah, and then like you said, like we know so little about it. It's like you know nothing about your own hand or something, and you're like, well, I've got it, but I actually have no idea how it works.
And also the idea that your brain is just in a meat mech, and that's the only thing, isn't it? So you just like, you got a little brain, security away, that's who you are. You're just in your little meat blob, and then your body is just to transport it around and for it to function and to stay alive.
And and people who don't want to exercise, like, well, what's going on? Look after your meat mech, man.
I know. There's so many layers to it.
Get MOT'd,
Like something that was surprising to me in my research was something that I assumed was, how do you explain it, real, such as adolescence. is actually just a social construct. Like it wasn't invented until recently, the idea of teenagers or adolescence. Adolescence was created quite recently. I didn't get a date, but it was invented. And it's the fact that like it splits up into kind of biological, where you start to become an adult, but that's the beginning part of adolescence, inverted commas, and then you have the kind of social part where you're allowed to suddenly drink and smoke and buy things and vote and stuff. So it's kind of, it serves as a way of splitting two parts of adulthood apart. And people are like totally against it. Some people criticize the idea of having adolescence because they say it like puts pressure on people, and like it is a very, like I was saying, a valuable decision time making where you have to decide what you're going to do as a career and blah blah blah. But people totally don't mature at the same rates. Not even just girls and boys, just like
So
one person from another.
the only sort of qualm I have with that, when people say, "Oh, it's so terrible that you have to decide your whole your career when you're a kid or when you're young," it's like that's how time works. It's no one's forcing you to do it. It's just that's how you can't decide your career when you're an adult because or when you're in your 50s because that's literally just how time works. I'm afraid. But yeah, I'm with you.
Late.
I think super interesting on terms of the sort of development in terms of, like, say, Victorian kids up chimneys and everything. They definitely would have been not worried about their teenage years in the same way that we are now. Obviously, with their you're off to work at 7 or 8 and then breadwinner by 9. And it's I think the sort of trauma and events in your life changing you and becoming pivotal moments in terms of your like development. I think that's a really, I know that came up repeatedly in stuff I was looking at this week.
Because it's funny. I was reading one thing and I was saying that, like, you were saying about like kids previously, before the age of 12 they were considered not aware enough to sign contracts which would have them working up until they're an adult. And it was like saying from the age of 12 you sign a contract in all good thought and someone's like, yeah, this is fine, they can choose to work
when was this,
until they're 25. So from some kids from like the age of 12 they used to be able to have contracts. So they
when, like, what time period was this? Sorry,
I can't remember the time.
I remember put you on the spot here, but it was like a while ago. I'm guessing.
Yeah,
probably like the 90s, like the late 80s. It was probably.
I remember it was
no.
it was the thing of like, where does the 18-year thing come from? And it was like an American article, and then it relayed it back to it came from the Brits, and the idea that is medieval times, that's the age you would have been able to become a knight, but that wasn't really helping of why they decided it. But I know as it went further back, the Catholics decided, at least for adults, was really when you became, for girls when they menstruated, and for boys, apparently when they grew pubic hair, that was like one of the deciders for when you hit puberty for boys, is you start growing hair.
You'd think when your voice breaks, might be easier to check.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's funny, isn't it? Yeah, fully. You just see loads of kids
Get
pretending. Be like, no, I'm an adult now. Yes.
Oh yeah, send me up the chimneys.
But there's like also lots of cultures have that, don't they?
It's when
With
you,
like
when
as
you can
it's a
reproduce,
physical, like
it's
menstruation or
as soon as you can have kids. They're saying some things usually is girls which develop earlier than boys. Yeah, hence why like Judaism is it's 12 for a girl's bat mitzvah and it's 13 for a boy's bar mitzvah, things like that.
I think that
well in
general maturity
the
during
Roman
life,
times
that rings quite true. Sorry, go on, Fred.
No, in Roman times, a girl is sexually mature and becomes an adult, and depending on your social standing, depending on basically how young that would be, like really really well off girls would be like wed at 12, whereas the boys weren't considered like adults who could do what they wanted until they were like 20, 25.
It's very much it's defined by the culture and defined.
I looked up different ages in different cultures. A few ages that I found which were quite interesting. For example, if you were part of a branch of Christianity, like confirmation happens around 12 to 15, that's kind of adulting. If you are in the Baha'i, I think I'm saying that correctly, you are spiritually awakened at 15 as well. If you are a Roman, obviously I was saying it depends on if you're a girl or a boy, but girls it's hella young. And then the fun part I quite liked, in the Church of the Jesus Christ and the Latter-day Saints, until you are 8 you cannot sin, and then after that you're considered kind of like a form of adult where you can sin and it's your fault. And that also
8 is when you can sin.
Ties with, yes, yeah. No, but this ties
7-year-olds stick around. Oh yeah, that's fine. But when you're 8, that is when the responsibilities kick in, mate. All right, what are you doing?
Yeah, exactly. But the thing is, this is what happened with the Judaism, is that when you have your bar part of the reason it's celebrated is because the father is now no longer responsible for your sins. It's you. What's with the sins?
Get all that weight on your shoulders. Yeah, no, it's
I know.
yeah.
I was reading one thing which was quite a nice quote for being an adult. It was, maturity is the ability to integrate acquired knowledge into daily life and to use the information supplied by the brain to suppress the urges of the heart. He has the capability to make hard decisions based on his understanding of the consequences of intended actions. But it was on a Jewish website because I was trying to look at just the 12 and 13 thing and saying like how it's changed societally, because it used to be 12, 13, well 13 for the boys, they go out and start having to kind of like earn, and again you're losing that responsibility from your parents, whereas now socially it's changing. You can, up until the age of like 20, you don't need to worry about whatever you do because you're usually going to come home to a warm meal. You don't have to find your own food. It was an interesting thought to say like how you can say, as we were saying previously, like your brain actually doesn't develop properly until you hit 25, 30. But there's actually a huge increase for people staying at home before moving out, and you could say for whatever different factors it includes, of like not being able to afford to move out, or of a case of it's there's not as much incentive anymore. Yeah, you can
It's a
stay at home
completely,
and
it's a
Huh,
completely
that's
cultural
really
product, right? Yeah, it's completely a cultural product of and your,
Yeah,
of the situations you're in. But
the point, the opinion I'd say he had was that we've changed. That it used to be people did mature earlier because you had no other option to. You weren't kicked out of house when you were like 13, whereas now we have the option whether or not to say the option, but it's not the same kind of circumstances. Hence why you may see
Yeah, I reckon it
maturity
actually
having
affects your
difference.
brain.
Mm.
Yeah, now you
oh,
say it.
for
Like, I
sure.
mean, people who go through trauma, that affects your brain in one way, right? But I mean, just having to fend for yourself and think about more things, you can feel it, can't you? When
Mm.
you start living
You can see it in
independently
people
and you
you
suddenly
meet.
have to do
If you,
stuff.
yeah. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
you can
Go on.
definitely. It's absolutely the case. Yeah. Well, I mean, a story springs to mind was when me and my friend were at university. We were in the kitchen. It's in our first year flat, and then this guy was he came in to cook some pasta, and like he just put this spaghetti in this pan and just turned the hob on, and then walked out the room. And we were sort of in the little like sofa area bit of those like kind of student first year flat things. And
Wait, no
then we
water.
we were sort of chatting. Yeah, no, we were just I was just chatting to my mate, and then we didn't really clock what he was doing until the spaghetti just burst into flames, and just smoke away. And we just like, and obviously had a chat with this bloke he just never cooked before in his life, and just I was like, it's just like it's just
I
but
like the idea of
yeah,
treating
you
it
take things for granted,
microwave.
but
It's
just
just like, if I
turn the
just
hob
put it
on.
in and make it hot, that'll cook it, right?
Well, I
Oh,
just
man.
love the idea he was walking around the supermarket like looking for the. Wait, sorry, where is your soft pasta? Or your pasta seems really hard. Like I don't know. And then all you have to cook it is like body went home, is it?
I think that's something that actually I've learned. Not even like is the cooking, not is anything. Just it's the accept your own ignorance and just Google how to do it first. And if you follow it, you're gonna be fine. But just
Yeah,
people don't
accept your
even do
ignorance
that.
and then start a podcast about it.
Oh
That's what you need to do. Start.
yeah.
But yeah, no, yeah, absolutely.
But like today, I had to take a car battery out, and I was just like, you know what? I'm just gonna quickly make double, triple, quadruple Google to make sure I'm doing it right. And the first thing pops up is like, do disconnect negative first, and I was like, I didn't think I actually knew that. Like I think in the back of my brain I knew it, but I'm glad I googled it to double check that I had to take the negative off first.
For slightly dying.
Slightly
I
dying,
say that. Yeah.
semi-fatal.
I asked my brother this of when did he feel like he became an adult, and he said obviously there's no like pivotal moment. We said like one thing of he's got his own theatre company, and when he starting off in acting, you'd see like the adults who had their own stuff, and you'd be like, right, you're learning from them, and they're like, you'd have a thought, is that right? Is that wrong? What they're doing? I mean, like, but they've been doing it for ages. They must know what they're doing. So listen to the sound advice and go for it. You're having that. You're knowing you're on the back foot, so to speak. And then he said, as going on to it, I realised when I started employing people, it would be like, oh, why aren't you doing this? Or a case of, or you realising you're having to impart the information that once you were trying to look for. I said also another side thing is sometimes when you see people being like, oh no, I now know that you are doing it wrong or you're not doing it wrong, and that's from experience rather than. And I think definitely with Google, is that's given kind of like a false experience, which is kind of, it's still, you've got the right information but not necessarily the emotion behind it. So because you can
Still
be like,
have to go through it. Yeah.
like saying trying to correct a mechanic because he's saying, actually, I Googled that and this isn't the right way to do it. But the mechanic knows, yeah, trial and error, that's the right way to do it. But I know if I do it this way, it will be better or it's easy to do it.
It's like so like if it's to the lived experience versus like knowledge. Like okay, if you wanted to find out about giving birth, who would you like sort of rather talk to about it?
A
Would you
man.
rather talk to a mother, or a male doctor? Like who would you rather?
Yeah.
It'd be kind of a crazy thing to talk about, right? If you
Mm.
because obviously you can have a mother who doesn't know any of the scientific stuff, but then you can have a doctor who's obviously never done it. So
Yeah.
it obviously depends what your goal is to what which
Yeah.
which knowledge you're going to if you're studying for a medical exam, you're probably going to want to talk
I
to
mean,
the
if the
doctor.
male,
But
yeah,
sorry for
if the male doctor's done it a bunch, like if either of you have read that awesome book, this is gonna hurt by Adam Kay.
Yeah. No.
Great
Yeah.
book, great book about him working in the NHS. I mean, he delivered thousands and thousands of babies, and I'm not saying that a mother doesn't know this or a guy does know or doesn't know.
but I
like,
mean in terms of if you
both
say
experiences are valid to listen to, right?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. But if he's never like pushed on out of his body, then obviously that's going to be quite different, right? But yeah, he's probably got.
If you're asking how it feels, yeah.
Well, yeah, that's what. Oh, yes, yeah.
Well, I guess it's are you delivering it or are you going to have the baby? I guess you'd probably I'd ask him how to deliver someone else's baby, but I'd definitely ask a woman what it feels like to give birth or what I need to know about. Yeah, that's good.
So one fun thought I saw is, do you know, for parents of, say, one person who has one kid, they will know how to parent that child like none other. Whereas one parent with 3 kids, they know how to parent 3 children. Maybe not each one as individually well. I'm not saying not as in, but do you know, like it's a different kind of parenting. Or the parent that has 21 kids, like each one is a parent. Each one knows how to be a parent, but it's all different, like management, isn't it? Because a parent with lone children, they will be completely different parenting experiences because of the individual child as well as the person. But it's kind of like, you'd think the more kids you have, the more of an expert you are. But realistically, I feel like the person with 1 kid is going to be an expert in that one child, and the person with 3 kids, it changes. It's not the thought of, you think more kids, surely the better parent, but also your ability gets negated by just effort. You've got a job, you've got a housework, you've got 1 kid, 2 kid, 3 kids, so you're not maybe able to do stuff as you'd like to do it.
So is there any twins or triplets listening? Just a quick, go ask your parents how good they think they are. We can email us about that. Yeah. No, I think that's but it's an interesting point. Yeah.
Did anyone look up some cultures which had traditions to become an adult? So Judaism has bar and bat mitzvahs. One thing I've seen is so I always think it's quite funny for like tribal things when becoming an adult. It's kind of, you may have like a rite of passage. One is, I think it's in South America, they have bullet ants, and these are meant to be like the highest pain rating of any ant. Feels like you're getting shot. And there's this tribe which you have to have a gauntlet of all their heads. So like it's kind of like wearing a glove just to bullet ants, and you've got to wear it. And it's like, that sounds mad. Whereas there's another tribe, I think it was in Africa, and they have lots of cattle as their kind of, that's as their focal point as a tribe. And so part of it, you have to run over like loads of cattle. So they line up loads of cows, and then you've got to run over the backs of them as like
no way, that's sick.
But it's really funny, the idea.
I think I'd definitely rather that than the ant glove.
It's like,
the ant glove sounds like the worst way to get a superpower ever.
Yeah. I feel knew about the other guys. Like, guys, can't we have cows instead of ants?
Oh, God,
if they're like the opposite side of like a ravine or something, and they're just looking at, I don't know why you'd have cows next to a ravine, but you know what I mean. You're just looking across and like, God damn, I really got born into the wrong tribe over here with my dancing around with cows, but just wearing these, being buried alive with ants and things. That's funny.
And then there's the mixture where they've got the whole helmet made of cow heads, and you're like, I don't even know how I meant to wear that.
Just slowly munching on you.
Bullet cows.
Do you remember, Johnny, when we were in Tanzania, that guy was talking about how originally the Maasai, you had to kill a lion to become a man.
Totally. That was it. So I think you were saying that they were killing too many lions, or they're not able to kill any lions.
Oh yeah, that they were killing too many lions. That it was endangering lions because they'd go out of their way.
It's funny as well, that idea of like, say if you've had a tribal tradition for years and years and years, and suddenly new people move in and say, nope, can't do that anymore. For some people, no, you're not allowed to be an adult anymore. Effectively, it's saying to somebody, isn't it?
Yeah, I feel like if they are literally
Yeah, the
killing that
first
many lions,
generation
then
going
it's
through it would have.
Yeah, it'd be really sad for them. You can bet as well they do it in the sly, and probably still do now. But so has
Also,
anyone?
I mean, it's like the
Yeah.
original problem was the fact that other like we're the reason that there aren't enough lions to do it. If that makes sense, like we kind of caused it, the
Yeah.
spiraling effect.
No, you can't kill
But
them anymore
anyway,
because we
sorry. Yeah,
killed
I
them
did.
all.
Yeah, yeah, because we came over in our colonial times and really enjoyed killing them, and our guns were too good. And yeah, you've got none left now, so you can't kill the ones you got left.
I think it's the
So has
good
anyone
and
got
bad
anything
guys.
else that
You
they've
go.
thought of, which either from personal experience or something you researched, you thought was kind of a good little point about coming of age?
The take home point for me really is just the whole thing about how these moments in your life where would become like you realize. Oh, I think it really falls down to responsibility, and then so obviously there's like bigger ones in terms of the normal ones most people go through. Like I'm sure I was saying before, like having a kid and that. But I do believe that like, or you could hear. I can imagine like if something particularly traumatic happened to someone, you'd be like that was the end of my childhood. Like
Mm.
I feel like I saw that on an interview or something. Like, where there's women talking about like like I think something sort of abuse thing. I think with that was the end of my childhood. That was that I don't remember anything. Nothing after that felt the same as it did before. So you have these pivotal moments where it's like really.
Yes, I guess there's two ways of one's more of a societal adulthood, and one's a personal one, and then one is a
Yeah, for
legal
sure.
one of where they have to decide. You could say, oh, you're old enough to vote and drink and join the military, but if you go to a workplace, you're very much the newbie. You're not an adult yet. You're not on that playing level. Whereas, and the other thing is the personal adulthood, where it's from pivotal either trauma or even positive ones as well, of where you know maybe you went camping on your own, and when you're relatively young, you're like, actually, I've got a hold on it. Now you feel confident enough to go out into the world. So that could be another pivotal moment, which isn't just trauma, but positive. Yeah.
Oh no, yeah, there's definitely like positive things as well. I think to take from it.
Just many countries have their own festivals or days that they have, which are just nice celebrations. There's no force. They're not generally. Some of them are based on religions, but they're generally just like a nice cultural thing. So like Papua New Guinea, they wear cool hats and they have lots of leaves on these special hats that hang down to their to their midline to their waist, and they dance around. Looks cool. In the Philippines, they have special dress like super strict, and they have to wear like coats and ties and stuff. And like a girl when she turns 18 is like surrounded by 18 special men in their lives, which is like boyfriends, relatives, and stuff. And they have candles with flowers and stuff. Whereas Filipino men, it's not until they're 21 kind of do whatever they want. Like any family can do what they want. It's more important for the girls. But there's that. In Scandinavian countries, they have like a party at around 18 or 21. Just have a really big party. Same in what was it? Latin America. I think it's called the quinceañero. I've forgotten how to say it now. Quinceañeras. Yeah, and it's like super expensive. Like this is where girls get mad amounts of money. It's kind of like you could relate it to like bar mitzvah type thing. Like the family puts. We're talking like family heirloom gold is handed down to you at 15 years old, and then you could like put it in a box and never touch it again.
It's like,
Well, I know we were
but
talking about Johnny was saying like what age you'd want to give your kids money, like, or what if you were trying to save up to give your kids money, what age you want to do that?
So
Yeah. No, literally, I was going to relate because I know we mentioned it before, but like I know you're saying obviously like 15 definitely you wouldn't want to give, I mean obviously it depends on the kid as well, but I mean I
To be
know
fair though,
being
when I was
15 and thinking
15, like yeah, but don't you think when you're 15 that like I mean I still kind of do, but £1,000 is a crazy amount of money. Like if I
when I
gave
was,
my 15-year-old
well,
self £100, I would have been so
I'd be
happy. Like
laughing,
just give him
yeah.
just give him a
Yeah.
hundred.
But the first job I got paper was when I was 15, and it was like I remember getting the money, and then it would be like, oh my god, that it's working for my uncle's marquee company, and it was just like that was when I was like, yeah, this is bad. He just gave us like a wad of cash and was just like, yeah, don't get mugged, mate, on the way home. I would have stayed with him for a few weeks and just
I love the idea if he's a really irresponsible uncle and gives you like $3,000 just in cash.
It wasn't.
It's like, what is a 15-year-old going to do with $3,000 in cash?
It wasn't quite. I didn't work for quite that long. It was more. Yeah.
Go into a
It was
bike
something
shop.
that was,
Can I buy a bike, please?
Yeah.
That's way too much for somebody your age. I'm going to take it off you because you're not responsible enough. But
Yeah.
But yeah.
Oh man, what can you even
But I mean,
buy?
I remember,
What can
yeah.
a 15-year-old really buy with cash? Like $3,000 cash anyway. Like a lot of sweets. You spend it on.
Probably.
Harry Potter, I'll buy the lot. And
Yeah.
then be like,
Yeah,
yeah,
that's
it costs
right.
you all of 50
Yeah.
quid. Oh.
Yeah, I do remember being
Minecraft
like
tokens.
7 or 8, I think. Yeah, I remember like 7 or 8, and like my uncle did a thing with a £20 note. You know, when you drop it and you have to try and catch it.
Yeah.
It's a different uncle actually. But yeah, and I know I managed to catch it somehow. And I remember looking at it, being like, "Oh well, this is it. I'm set for life now. Like, I can, £20. I could buy a house. I could buy a car. Like, what, no worries." So yeah, but that was I mean, yeah.
Then he took it
So-
off you.
No, yeah. I think my mum was like, "Oh, he's got to let him keep it," and I think he's borne a grudge against me for it to this day. I've been struck from the will.
And now, I mean, like, to be honest, like, imagine 20 quid is so much money, and then yet if we went to a pub, you wouldn't even get change from like 3 pints.
Mate, we can dream. Put on the pub.
Yeah,
If you're up north to see Johnny, then maybe it'd be alright.
do you think that's like one of the things of like a good litmus for it is like financial responsibility? Because the hopes is by that point you could say you can just be financially savvy, but then you'd have no emotional maturity or anything else.
I know that really plays back to the whole brain development stuff. I think that's your attitudes towards risk and your attitudes towards like just how emotionally, obviously the sort of stereotype of teenagers being more emotional. But I think there is obviously science behind that and with your brain development stuff.
I guess it's
so, yeah.
Decisions based on understanding of the consequences. I guess that's it, isn't
Exactly.
it? It's the full foresight to be like, if I do this now, how will it affect me and the others around me? And I guess the first thing usually is you learn is, if I do this, how will it affect me later on? And then slowly it gets to affecting, I don't know, that's me spitball.
This like ties hugely with Wikipedia's general theme of turning into an adult, which is that there are many things that make an adult, like social and biological, and they are all inconsistent and contradictory. Just because you can have 40, the whole like midlife crisis idea where suddenly men are all okay.
So
Not to drag this out.
start again, mate. Go for it.
The idea
from the midlife crisis.
that like I said, Wikipedia page inconsistent and contradicting ideas, because you have like the idea that when you're having your midlife crisis in whatever your 40s or 50s or however old, you suddenly blow a bunch of cash like spontaneously on a car or something stupid. Like, is that the opposite of what we were saying about being able to understand things, money, and consequences?
Yeah, fully. Yeah, that's such a good point. I guess it's that thought though of like, I've lived long enough and I've been responsible for my actions and outweighed and like weighing up the consequences. Now I'm gonna have a break from doing all that pressure and responsibility and get what I want and not think about it.
Yeah, I think there's a good argument to be made that you never really grow up in a lot of ways, but I think it's the kind of thing where you are always changing, you're always developing, and you only really can appreciate that if you take the time to look back and see where you've come from. Because obviously, because you're you and you live your life every day, you kind of don't really notice these things changing until you look back and you're like, oh damn.
Yeah.
So yeah, the power of journaling and stuff like that.
So I think
That's a nice ending. Yeah.
Yeah. So to round up, we've kind of had different things of where different cultures have different ages for different reasons. Somewhere in between, like mental and physical maturity. Brain-wise, for us, it seems to be about 25 to 30s when you're actually starting to mature to a way that you're not going to have detrimental effects dependent on events. But at the same time, sometimes pivotal moments, be it traumatic or positive, they will take you out of your childhood early, so to speak. And there's again lots of different ways that contradict each other of what we may class or not class as adult behaviour and when you are an adult or not.
I thought that was cool, but you made me think I should definitely get back on writing a diary. I mean, you forget the little things, right?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, they are nice. It's very nice. Yeah.
Not memoirs, but doing effectively like an autobiography, but mainly just so if I die early and Ezra doesn't know who I am, then he can read it. And
If only you had some sort of
creepy video
tangible thing that you've from a recording of your voice or something that he could listen back to.
Oh, I wonder what I
Get
could
your
do.
views on random topics that came across every week.
My son will think I'm a robot.
What? Freddy. Oh dear.
So we hope you've learned something, because we've learned something. Thank you for listening. It's been a thank you to Alistair and a thank you to Freddie, and a biggest thank you to me, Jonathan, your host. Thank you and goodbye for next time.
So thank you for listening to No Idea Yet. If you've liked the show, you can always follow us on Instagram. It's No Idea Yet Podcast. And if you have any comments, information you thought we missed, or recommendations for the future, drop us an email on noideayetpodcast@gmail.com. Stay tuned every Saturday when we drop our new episodes. And an excerpt from my very own Alistair about coming of age. I'll tell you what, guys, don't know about coming of age, but having a few beers or 7 and whacking your age range up to 30 to 60 on Tinder and swiping away makes for an interesting evening. Thank you, Alistair. And thank you for listening to No Idea Yet.